Welcome back to the second part of this tutorial in which I'm showing you how to port your Star Wars: The Old Republic character into Battlefront 2. So in the last part, we got our character model out of Star Wars: The Old Republic and into Blender with all the textures and UVs aligned correctly. And so in this one, we're just going to pose it in the correct way so that we can rig it to a Battlefront 2 skeleton. So first we have to rig it to another skeleton so that we can pose it, and then we can rig it to the Battlefront 2 skeleton. Got it? Cool. So first step, we're going to need to open up Frosty because we need a reference for the pose. And we can actually do that by just searching for a reference, which is an NPC, I believe. Nope, it's a reference. And human male is what we're looking for here. This guy is my favorite little tool in Frosty to use. And here he is. This is the pose we want to get our Old Republic character into. He's not quite there just yet, and his scale and proportions are going to be a little bit off, as we will notice. So we're going to export this. We want the walrus human male skeleton. I do scale in centimeters. You don't have to. You can do it on another scale. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, we're going to save that to our folder, and now we can import it into this folder, or into this project, Blender. And that is about the size we want our character to be, and in the right pose. So how do we do this? Well, I'll show you. There is one resource I found very useful, and it's this guy, Stick Glove. Huge shout out to this guy. He has helped me so much. He has done a lot of SWTOR models here, and he has actually rigged them already for us, which is very useful. So what we can do is we can download one of these. Let's say I've already done, like I've taken Lana and Senya and his Valkorian, and they're very useful. Valens too. Very, very useful little page here. Point being is that his models give us a skeleton to work with that will line up with our character. So what we can do is we can import that. He uses this xps.mesh kind of thing to do that. So we go ahead and import one of those. I actually have Shape Vizsla here ready, so I'm going to go ahead and import her. This .mesh thing, by the way, is another Blender add-on you need, if memory serves correctly. So yeah, that's a thing. So let's go ahead and get this properly into the collection. And we don't really need these things. Yeah, okay. We don't really need her model at all. We just need the skeleton, right? So let's go ahead and hide our this guy right here. And so the main thing we want to do and accomplish here is get the hands to line up, because that is going to be the trickiest part. And we can go ahead and go into viewport display here and change in front as we need it, just so we can make sure that it's all kind of fitting in the best we can with our character's hands. That seems pretty good to me. Not quite perfect, but as good as we're going to get, I believe. So, as you can see, it's a little disproportionate to our model, but that's okay. So now that we have that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my model, select this, and do automatic weights, which is usually a terrible idea. Actually, I forgot to do something first. We need to go to our model and edit mode, select all, mesh, merge by distance, and that's going to get rid of 5,000 vertices that were unneeded, that were overlapping, and that was causing some problems. Anyway, now we can do automatic weights. Boom. And so if you go into pose mode now, you'll see that he will move his body a little bit. But therein lies the problem. It's not rigged perfectly, so we're gonna have a lot of things to do here. Anyway, what we can do is we can actually merge all of Shavizzle's meshes, and then this way we can attempt to weight transfer it instead of doing automatic weights. And what that means is that we're just gonna need to line her up the best we can with our character. Something like that. Maybe a little bit bigger. About as lined up as it's gonna get. Now, who's a little taller? Shaviz a little taller? Apparently so. Anyway, what we can do now is we can go into our character and we want to parent it with empty groups. And then we can select Shea Vizsla, then our character. We're going to go into weight paint, transfer weights, nearest face interpolated, and then by name, boom, and then we can hide Shea Vizsla for a second. And now let's see how good that did. Maybe a little better. Yeah, you see that? A little bit better, ever so slightly. And so we'll go with that. Now there might be some problems with the hand. Yep, some weirdness with the hand we're gonna have to mess with. And that's the least fun part about making these mods. Really, so this is gonna be a process here, but we're gonna figure it out. Modding is not always easy. Alright, so we're on the right hand here, so we're gonna go to our vertex groups. We're gonna go to right, and then we're gonna look at all these fingers individually and try and weight paint them, because that's the best way I know how to do it. And the thumb looks like it's good. And then we're going to go to the right finger, and you can see it's kind of bleeding onto this one for some reason. I'll probably speed this part of the video up, and because not really much to say other than figure it out. Yep, that's pretty much it. Alright, there is one hand. That took a lot of effort. And if you're wondering, you can reset the pose by hitting Alt-R. It kind of unrotates everything. But yeah, that took a lot of work. You got to go into each finger individually, just kind of weight paint and fix it. That is the best way I found to do so. I still got to do it to one more hand. Alright, and that is the left hand completed. So I'll go ahead and set those back. Now, what do? We got to get it into the correct pose as this guy. Now that everything is rigged correctly. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to delete Shea Vizsla because we don't need her anymore. And then we're just going to move the character down so that it kind of lines up correctly. The head and the shoulders kind of line up correctly. That is our goal here. We might need to actually get him a little bigger. That seems about good right there. Alright, so next step, we're going to shorten his legs. Now, I don't know if this is actually going to work, but let's try it out. We do that, and then we shorten, yep, that works perfectly. Okay, so we're going to select these two bones here that are controlling our legs, and all we have to do is kind of scale it down to shorten his legs to the right proportions of a Battlefront 2 character. And then we can look at it. It might look a little weird to you at first because Star Wars: Old Republic characters are actually a lot taller than they should be. That does look really weird though. That looks so weird. But I mean, it's proportioned correctly. It's proportioned correctly, so like if you look at the character, butt's in the right spot, head's in the right spot. Yeah. It looks so weird, doesn't it? Oh well, we'll live with it. He looks like he has tiny legs because I'm so used to him being tall anyway. But that's the way it has to be. I always think this when I make models, but then they turn out pretty good, so what can I say? How's that? What if we just shorten the thighs a little bit less and the feet a little bit more? proportions look a little bit better. We'll probably end up shrinking his shoulders too, just the tiniest bit, because that might be a little too big. And to do that, we'll just select both of these and hit S, and then just kind of scale it a slight bit down if we need to. But we'll get there. Making a SWTOR character fit the proportions of a Battlefront 2 model is one of the weirdest parts about modding this game. Anyway, now that that is done, we can go ahead and pose the arms into the correct pose and the legs into the correct pose. So we should just have to kind of move the legs a little to the side there and a little to the back, and then they'd be decently lined up with the white man's legs. You just kind of gotta get it to line up the best you can. Okay, and so this is what I meant by maybe the arms are a little too big. You see the hand is kind of just overlapping. So what we'll do is we'll either select the arms to shrink or the shoulder to shrink. And it only needs to shrink the tiniest bit, like there, to fit the proportions. And that actually makes the whole thing look a tiny bit better as well. All right, we just gotta get the fingers to line up the best we can. Doesn't have to be the most perfect thing in the world, but it has to be pretty close. The hands are the most important part. And there we go. He is now in the correct pose and the correct proportions. So he's ready to get into Battlefront 2. He just needs to be rigged to the Battlefront 2 skeleton, which we will cover in the next episode of this series. So thank you for watching this. Hope it helped a great deal. I think it worked out pretty well, actually, all things considered. But yeah, in the next one, we'll be covering how to rig this guy to the Battlefront 2 skeleton. So see you in the next one.